Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. You're watching the News Night and I'm Deepthi Sachdeva. You know, they gave the world a virus. Now they are playing with fungus. They hacked your phone. They might already own your network. You're wondering who we are talking about? From Ladakh to Lahore, from TikTok to Taiwan. This is about China. China, as you see, is almost everywhere. And now there is a sensational Russian intelligence leak that has branded China a serious espionage threat. You've heard that right. A serious espionage threat. An enemy of Russian national security. If Beijing today is spying on Moscow's missiles, what might they be plotting for Washington? Just think about this. Bioterror whispers now have become louder and perhaps more substantive. Could China be planning something worse than COVID? This is what a lot of you have been thinking, discussing and talking about. And this isn't trade. This is infiltration with serious global consequences. So tonight we decide to connect the dots before it is too late. Because the story is about China that possibly is the threat number one, the enemy number one for the entire world. And I want to begin by looking at the first important reason that you must be aware about. We are talking of the virus and the fungus. And I want to talk of what happened in the US in the last few days. You've seen the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, also speaking about this. Now, on your screens are more details of this fungus we are talking about. The scientific name is Fusarium graminarium. Now, this is a pathogen. It is classified as a potential agro-terrorism weapon. Look at those words, look at those details very, very carefully. What does it cause? It causes head blight, which is a disease of the wheat, the barley, maize and rice. So if you consume wheat or barley or rice that is infested with this, you could also get infected. It is responsible, ladies and gentlemen, for billions of dollars in economic losses worldwide every year. This is all according to the US Department of Justice. What are the symptoms? What does it lead to? Those details are on your screens. It causes vomiting. It causes liver damage. It causes reproductive defects in humans and in livestock. So these are serious details as far as this particular fungus is concerned. There are 2 individuals, remember, who've been arrested in the US. Exactly why? Because they apparently were smuggling this fungus. And now I want you to take the next few seconds listening in to a man called Gordon. Now, he's apparently speaking on why he believes that this could be a threat worse than COVID. Listen in.
This was an attack on the United States at a time when China thought it's at war with us. We Americans think we're at peace, but China knows it's at war. Xi Jinping talks about going to war all the time, and he's mobilizing all of Chinese society to go to war. So we can lose our country, even though we're the far stronger nation, because we're not defending ourselves with the vigor and the determination that is necessary. This is part of a broader campaign, and we have to treat it with the utmost urgency.
So what is going on? What is China really wanting to do, and how prepared is the world to deal with this? Without wasting time, let me say good evening to W. Selvamurthy, who's a scientist and a Director General at the Amity Directorate of Science and Innovation. And again, a very, very respected voice when you talk about this issue. And it's equal pleasure and an honor also to introduce Ambassador Ashok Kanta. And he, remember, has served in China. So I think both these voices today will help us understand what should we be doing. And gentlemen, I will just request you to keep your comments brief because there is so much more that we would want to cover. We will open this story up and tell our viewers about 10 threats that China today is posing. But first to you, W. Selvamurthy, sir. Should we be concerned? Is China wanting to create something worse than COVID? What about this fungus?
It's a wake-up call for the whole humanity and the whole world that the China is now getting into the bioterrorism and the threat, the incident which has happened, smuggling the fusarium, is a very clear indication that China is now determined to use these biothreat agents. Not only, this is an agent, fusarium, which affects not only the agriculture and bioterrorism, but then it also affects the animal husbandry as well as the humans, ultimately humans. So this is the whole biosphere is threatened by this very, very lethal biothreat agents. So we need to also prepare. India is the largest biological wealth holder today in the world. The human beings, 1.42 billion, 50% below the age of 25 years. And we have a large animal wealth, which is the very enviable animal wealth we have.
Yes.
And also the agriculture, 15 to 18% GDP coming from agriculture sector.
Absolutely.
So we need to defend, protect, and conserve this biological wealth which India enjoys today. So India has rightly launched a major initiative in this biothreat mitigation.
Okay.
And I would like to tell the viewers, the government of India has already taken initiative well in time.
Okay, so we'll talk about what India has done, because I want to open the other chapter. That is the Russia chapter. Now, Russia chapter also very, very significant, because earlier today, remember, there are reports coming in of how Russia has called China a threat number one. Now, why is that? On your screens are details that will help you understand why has Russia gone ahead to do this. Now, there is a leaked intel that has branded China a serious espionage threat and an enemy of the Russian state. Look at those words very carefully. Espionage and a serious threat to national security. It goes on, in fact, to accuse Beijing of targeting Russian military and stealing sensitive tech. That is how far possibly the dragon has gone. And that is why this important information that has come out today is also telling you that Russia is wary. Now, Chinese operatives allegedly are also tracking Russian scientists and the Ukraine war assets. Think about this. What essentially is China doing? And not just this, if you even look at the Arctic, that is where China is using covert surveillance spreading to that Arctic military zone. That is why Russia says that right now Beijing is our enemy number one. Now, Ambassador Ashok Kantha, I will take this opportunity to help you decode in the next 30 seconds your take on this report that has come in from Russia. How important, how sensational is this, sir?
Well, I have gone through this report in New York Times, which quotes a leaked report. New York Times does not confirm authenticity of report. It's not sure whether it's a draft or a final report. We are aware of the fact that there are serious concerns between China and Russia on different issues, but at the same time, it's a very strong relationship. We should not have any doubt about resilience and robustness of this relationship. So it's an input. We should take that into account, but I will not jump to any conclusions based on this report.
I think it's too early. So what I'll do is I will take this opportunity to push out more details, because what we decided to do is at least list out 8 particular instances. Ladies and gentlemen, these are 8 particular instances that will help you understand why China is still the threat number one. This is Newsnight's Deep Dive. So why is China threat number one? I'm sure a lot of you know these details, but let's bring up these details yet again. I'm looking at China's proxy war for Pakistan, because remember, this has been a concern that Pakistan is just an ally, but the real problem is China. And do you know how China was playing and aiding Pakistan in this war? About 81% of these weapons, remember, that Pakistan used, in spite of the fact that India pummeled Pakistan, despite those Chinese-made weapons, came in from China, came in from the Dragon. Like the J-10, the PL-15, images of which you again see on your screens. And you believe it or not, there is a 50% off that China today has offered to Pakistan for the J-35A fighter jets, the deliveries of which will begin in August, that early. Let's bring up the next detail to tell you why is China threat number one as far as this particular story is concerned. There are 14 border disputes, ladies and gentlemen, across China and counting. And we must keep in mind that this is a dragon that has the entire potential of expansionism. And that is why China today is threat number one for the world. This brings us to our next important detail again. That's going to go up on your screens. Remember, you talk of Japan, you talk of Philippines, you talk of Vietnam. All these countries are on the edge. The reason is one. The reason is China. The China that continues to believe that it can hold a sway over absolutely anything and everything. And this is about the South China Sea. We've all read about this. We figured that out, that this is where, again, China continues to play a lot of its games. This brings us to our next important detail to help you understand why is China a threat number one. Remember Taiwan? China for the longest time says that Taiwan belongs to us. Taiwan has been fighting for its autonomy, and China, many people believe, could be ready to strike any day. That is the level of war preparedness with Taiwan. We've seen the US for the moment backing Taiwan, but again, like they say, this is about self-interest and a lot more. Our next important detail, that's going to be point number 5, to tell you why is China threat number 1. The terror ties with Pakistan, not just limited to weapons, not just limiting itself to providing wherewithal, but also deep links with the anti-India groups. The buzz is that China has been funneling all its support, all its smile, using Pakistan as a proxy to fight that particular war. Point number 6, that again explains to you why the world must wake up and take note of China's mechanizations. The Himalayan hostility. We all remember what happened in Ladakh, in Doklam, in Arunachal. What is it that China wants to do? In spite of the fact that New Delhi has said this absolutely unequivocally multiple times, that like with Pakistan, like with China, these are our boundaries, this is our country, no matter what you do. But that is a long game that China still wants to play. Reason number 7, again, that will explain why people need to be wary of China. Remember the water wars? We here on Newsnight had spoken about the Brahmaputra and how you have China, the dragon, wanting to weaponize the Brahmaputra, wanting to build a dam around the Great Bend so that, the downstream water that is coming into the northeast states get affected. But we've seen New Delhi responding sharply to that. Let's bring up reason number 8 as far as China is the threat number 1. These 2 images on your screens give away the entire story. Shahbaz Sharif, Xi Jinping, the best of friends. Pakistan is a junior partner, but Dragon has been backing Pakistan, shielding Pakistan, stalling global action against multiple terror elements that today are in Pakistan. And you also do know that the same Pakistan believes that with the help of China, it can counter India, but we've seen New Delhi drawing its own red lines. So about 8 reasons to help you understand why this Russian report is just the tip of the iceberg, because like they say, the more things change, the more they remain the same with China. So now let's take this moment to go back to our panel of guests who've been discussing this entire thing. And we, Selvamurthy, I want to get you back into this conversation. When you talk of COVID, till now, we do not know whether this was China behind this or not. But like I said in conjectures and a lot of other reports, there is a possible China link to COVID. Do you believe that the world today is better prepared to deal with China and its threats?
It's mostly understood that the Wuhan has been the BSL-4 facility in Wuhan could be the potential source of the whole corona, the virus leaking out, and then getting the whole pandemic, which the whole world experienced today. And so it's very difficult for the actual, evidences, scientific evidences to be shown. Because, that is the problem with this biowarfare agents, that you won't be able to track unless you do a mapping of the genome analysis, looking at this right from the root etiology. So it's very difficult to really identify the source 100%. So that is the problem with the biowarfare agents. So, but then most of the evidences indicate the possibility of Wuhan being the source of the corona.
Okay.
But now the whole world has to be prepared. Our surveillance mechanisms have to be strengthened for not only the human, but the animal as well as the plant pathogens. We should be prepared with early diagnostics. We should strengthen our surveillance mechanisms for the disease patterns, epidemiological studies, mapping of the potential biothreat agents we need to do in terms of the genome analysis, keep the library. So anything coming from outside, you can match and see whether it is spontaneously mutated or genetically engineered. So all this need to be done. We need to have the counter mechanisms like antibiotics, antifungals, and also the antivirals. We need to have prepared point of care diagnostics method to contain the spread of the disease so that we don't allow this to become a pandemic or first epidemic and pandemic. Then we also need to have the right kind of medical management if it happens on humans. So we need to have the right kind of personal protective ensembles, the hospital facilities available, the isolation facilities, and also the treatment modalities.
Okay, so you've got into prevention to treatment, but Ambassador Kant, I'm just wondering that when the world has so much detail about China, its role, its motives, its tactics, its playbook, why is it that the world is so coy in dealing with China?
First, let me say that I'll be very reluctant to use the language of global threat number one, etc. No, we have serious concerns vis-a-vis China. Many of its actions, you referred to some of those actions, what it did in Eastern Ladakh, kind of support it provided to Pakistan and continues to provide our concerns about, what's it doing in lower reaches of Yalong Tsangpo, our concerns about its pursuit of its contested territorial claims in different domains. All that is true. We need to watch those things. We need to take appropriate action to safeguard our interest. But, saying that China is waging bioterror or something like that, I don't think that kind of demonization helps at all. China is our largest neighbor. We would like to have a relatively constructive relations with this country, despite all the problems we have. So what we need to do is to build up our deterrence, see that China does not damage our interests, get into a closer dialogue with China, convey very forcefully to China that it must be mindful of our interests, our concerns, our aspirations, and I'm sure a lot of countries are doing likewise. So they are conveying to China that the rise of China on the whole is a positive development, but why it is generating so much apprehension all around. I think this is something on which China needs to introspect over. But at the same time, I'll reiterate that the demonization of our largest neighbor, second largest economy in the world, is not warranted.
Okay, you are very cautious when you say what you do say. But Mr. Selvamurthy, when you talk of what happened with COVID, what's happened now, and this is the FBI saying this is as many words. Kash Patel, he has put out a detailed response where he speaks about the CCP, he speaks about, the links to the Communist Party there. So when you look at the big picture, can the US not take on China? Russia today, when it puts out a report possibly indicating that China is the threat number one, is it okay to say that we are misreading it? See,
in the whole geopolitical scenario, the wars need to be avoided. The conflicts need to be minimized. So we always have taught of Vasudeva Kudumbakam. So our doctrines have always been looking at not only neighbors, but everybody is one family, one earth, one future. This is the philosophy India has always been cherishing, and we are following those ethics very precisely. So now the US is now threatened. Certainly the statements which have been made, and I'm sure there will be a response from US for this, the agro-bioterrorism which has been inflicted on them. It's almost like weapons of mass destruction is being used. It may be at a small level, which they might have countered, but certainly it is an aggressive approach which has been shown on a country. So the country will respond, but it depends on how they respond.
All right, Ambassador Kanta, why don't you push that point a little further and get us into the entire picture of a Pakistan and a China bonhomie? That is again an open secret. The fact that even during this aggression by Pakistan, we have seen Pakistan using Chinese-based weapons. China did not call out Pakistan for terror. China continues to back Pakistan. So why should India extend the olive branch to China always?
No, it's not a question of extending olive branch. When it comes to China-Pakistan nexus, we need to speak out very clearly. There is a consistent pattern of China building up Pakistan's strategic and conventional capabilities in a manner which basically keeps India off balance. And we saw that evidence of that during the 88-hour conflict we had with Pakistan, where not only Chinese weapons were used, but in many other ways China was providing assistance to Pakistan. So these are issues we need to discuss very firmly with China. We also need to take into account the fact that very often we have a conjoint threat emanating from Pakistan and China. It's not just one country, sort of causing concerns to us, but they seem to be working in concert on a whole lot of issues. All that is true. What I was suggesting that you were referring to this Russian report. I'll also request our viewers to look at what Vladimir Putin says about relations between Russia and China.
Yes.
They're investing fully in developing that relationship. They describe it as no limits partnership. Look at relations between USA and China. Only today, in fact, talks are taking place in London between USA and China on trade issues.
Yes.
So the rest of the world is also engaging China. We need to engage with China because it's largest neighbor. But engagement doesn't mean that we are not mindful of challenges China poses to us.
Okay.
We don't, sort of ignore aspects of China's behavior which cause serious concern to us.
Yes, because I think ultimately it's about self-interest. That is how the story moves. Whether it is the US, its conversations on trade, whether even Russia, sir. Thank you so much for your time. I also want to thank Mr. Selvamurthy for joining us as we'll make way now for Newsnight's parting shot. Now, you would recall that just before World War II, Hitler envisioned global domination through tactics, through terror, and definitely calculated moves. Today, Xi Jinping's China is following a disturbingly familiar path. The question we are asking, is China the new threat that the world cannot afford to ignore? Even Russia, remember, must wake up to this danger. It has, because the dragon will not stop at one border. Definitely not. The clock is ticking. The world must unite before it's too late. And that is exactly where you need to take your position. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.